You've got just like this. It's definitely a sprint. Kickstarters are definitely a sprint. And, itch funding can be, but it doesn't have to be. You can just can be like a nice little 5-mile run.
My name is Jeremy Gage, and welcome to the Draw Your Dice podcast. This is an educational show involving all things tabletop role-playing industry. Listen alongside me as we hear from creators, entrepreneurs, and supporters about their personal best practices, principles, and philosophies. I encourage anyone from the budding game designer to a seasoned publisher and everyone in between to sit down with us and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Draw Your Dice podcast. My name is Jeremy Gage, as you heard in the intro, but as always, it is never about me. It is about a very special guest I've brought here today. This person is a voiceover artist. This person is also a game designer. I'd like to introduce to you Samantha Leigh.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you for being here, Sam. It is an absolute pleasure. As always, for the beginning of the show, would you just give a brief introduction of who you are to the fans, to the listeners, and also some plugs? I want you to make those dollars if no one can get to the hour end of this episode.
Sure. Well, I am Sam Leigh, or Samantha Leigh, on my games. I am fairly new to game design, but I've put a few games now on itch.io, the most notable being Anamnesis, which is a solo game that uses tarot cards to play. My itch is samleigh.itch.io, spelled Leigh, and you can also find me on Twitter at Goblin Mixtape.
Amazing. Additionally, as an icebreaker for the listeners, would you just sort of give your kind of RPG lineage, if you will, sort of like what was the first game that got you into the hobby and like kind of grabbed hold of you and never let you go? And then what was maybe the first game that kind of said, oh, I should design something, or I can design something, or I get a little spark here?
Yeah,
kind of
sure.
walk us through that.
So very similar to many others, my first game was D&D. It was D&D 5th edition, which I played in college. So really, I haven't been playing RPGs for all that long. I think it's been maybe about 5 or 6 years. So, but basically, yeah, D&D for a while, and then it wasn't until about a year ago that I actually realized that the indie scene existed, and so I just fell into like a wormhole after that, basically. Yeah, so I think I was just browsing on Kickstarter, honestly, when I saw like all these other games on there. I had no idea that people were even making this stuff, and like some of the first things that I backed were Spencer Campbell's Slayers, which was really definitely an inspiration to me, just seeing how cool some of these indie games can be and, being able to actually just write something and put it out there. So Slayers, I remember seeing Gun and Slinger and being really excited about that. Those were some of kind of the earlier ones that I saw that I backed. And then, just kind of found the whole community after that and dove right in.
Spencer Nevin, alumni shout out. Amazing. I love that. What has been sort of the most recent indie game that you've been playing with, reading, that's kind of like got you really excited?
Let's see. Oh, I've been playing a lot of solo games recently, and one that really just blew me away recently was Long Haul 1983 by Sean Patrick Kane, which is you're playing as a truck driver who's trying to make their way across this kind of vast space in order to get back to somebody that they care about, while like some sort of danger is lurking and trying to get you. And it was very cool. It's got such good design. It's like very inspirational to me in like setting the tone in a game and also providing little tiny details to kind of help the player. There's a section at the beginning, which I don't usually see in solo games, that has things to help you create your character. So like a little list of like what your character might be wearing, and you might pick a couple things from that list. So that was really cool to me to see. And then as far as like group games go, I actually played Bubble Gumshoe for the first time last night, and that was really fun. Yeah, so just kind of that was a new one. I hadn't played any Gumshoe game. And then I also played Necronautilus with some friends for the first time a few weeks ago, and that was awesome. So Yeah, just kind of doing a lot of like little one shots of stuff. Try out different systems. Yeah.
Yeah, build out your taste. I love it. That's super cool. You said that Long Haul was really inspirational to you, and today we'll be talking about. But do you feel like you're sort of in a space where you want to do solo games? Like, I only know of Anamnesis as one of your games currently, but I think you have a couple others that you have out on itch.
Yeah, so right now I've got mostly solo games on itch. I've got Anamnesis, and then I've got Penguin Pianist, which is very, like, I mean, it's quote unquote a game, right? It's very simple. It's basically like, you're a penguin and you play piano, and like, you roll on these tables to see like what challenges you faced, or who your rival was, or things like that. So it's very kind of silly and cute and very short. And then I've got another one called 6 Figures Under, which is a collection of solo micro games that are about being a freelance necromancer. It's also pretty goofy, very silly, so very different from the tone of Anamnesis. But I kind of like solo games because it is, I don't know, I think part of it is because I do think mechanics are fascinating, and I think that it can be really fun trying to figure out exactly what mechanics to use in a game. But overall, I'm more interested in like the tone and the story than I am the mechanics. And typically you need a little bit more focus, in my opinion, on mechanics when you're playing big group games, because you have so much more to think about with so many other people playing. Obviously, like with solo games, still very much something you need to consider, but I don't have to worry as much about like balancing, right, for an entire party of people. So I kind of navigate towards solo ones because they're a little easier for me to tackle, especially as a new designer. And I kind of like the idea of, somebody playing a solo game and being able to really shape the story how they want it to go. So yeah, I haven't really gravitated I have not tried to gravitate towards them in any way. I just kind of have naturally found myself writing them. So yeah.
Yeah, recently I started trying to game design since November of last year. And it was mechanics focused because a lot of the games I play are like crunchy mechanical games. I'm like, I must have like a good grasp on making mechanics. And every single like project I've done where I try to like make up a mechanical system has sort of like fallen flat for me. But recently I've been doing some paid work for individuals in like making setting pieces. And I think there's a bit of like an attraction to fiction writing for me specifically, like imagining a place, giving that place like a personality, and not really having to worry about mechanics. So I think that in my design career moving forward, I'm going to be exploring a lot of like micro setting type writings and offerings, and do like almost like a licensing, like an intellectual property licensing. You're like, hey, if you like this little micro setting, feel free to take it, put it right in your book and resell it or whatever, or something like that, something really modular. So, but that's all to say is that I commiserate in the sense that like, I just have this natural gravitation towards a specific part of game design that isn't like the system, right? And I think that's really fascinating that a lot of people, I think sometimes a lot of people feel like they have to come in on the mechanics end of things, and maybe not everyone. I guess that's making a pretty wide sweep of an assumption. But in my experience with people I've talked to, it seems like they always come mechanics first in their first design careers.
That's interesting.
I'm here to say that potentially that's not true.
Yeah, that's a very fascinating to me, because I certainly did not go mechanics first with even like my first game. So but like I can definitely see how that would be a focus for a lot of people. And I really relate to what you said, because I found that, I mean, that's one of the beauties of like hacking or working within somebody else's game, is you don't have to worry about all of the mechanics. You can just kind of take a setting or a story or a character and frame it around the mechanics that are already there. And it's one of those situations where sometimes limitations can foster creativity, because you have to work in this you have to work within a set of rules, and so you can kind of, it's maybe not quite as intimidating sometimes as staring at a blank sheet of paper. I did a little bit of freelance work recently for Travis Hill on his new Kickstarter, This World Is Not Yours, and that was really eye-opening to me because I, didn't do any work on the mechanics of that game, but it was like, he approached me and was like, hey, do you want to write a scenario for this? So I really was able to just kind of dive into the setting and the characters and didn't have to, I was able to use the mechanics to kind of help raise it up rather than worry about what the mechanics should be. So.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people recommend when they're like, what should I design first as like my first game or whatever. And a lot of people always recommend hacking or supplements for things already. So that's a really good point. And I've certainly seen hacks where it's literally just like a setting transition or a new set dressing or, classes for D&D and stuff like that.
Yeah.
New playbooks for stuff. Awesome. I think that's going to sort of lead us into previewing one of your games. So for the listeners here, we're going to be doing something a little bit extra with the game. We're going to talk about it first, but the game will probably give a better presentation if we play it a little bit. So this is an experiment for the show, but we're going to be playing the first act and maybe a second act if time allots of Anamnesis. But, first off the rip, Sam, what was like the sparking idea? Like, why Anamnesis? How did it enter into your noggin?
Sure, yeah. Anamnesis is kind of funny because it was so very, very, very different. I had this idea for a game where I wanted it to be like a group game where you have a GM and all of the players wake up with amnesia, and you kind of pass out blank character sheets, essentially. And the GM would have completed character sheets, and so the players would then have to kind of navigate through their environment and try to accomplish different tasks, and thus figure out, like, which skills they have and, like, what their story is with the people that they talk to. And so that was, like, the original concept, which I'm still, like, that could be interesting, right?
Yeah,
like,
that could be very cool.
Yeah, I haven't figured that one out yet, but, like, that's on the back burner somewhere. But I pulled that idea out, kind of wanting to start planning it, and it became Anamnesis. It was like, I was doing some thinking, and I was like, what if this is a solo game, and then what if I ditch the character sheet? And, like, it just kind of went in an entirely different direction from the original. So, but I really like how it turned out. It wasn't what I was intending to write at all, but it just kind of like naturally went there, and I really enjoy what came from it. So.
Amazing. Yeah, Randy Lubin was on the show previously, and he also talked about how there is a game which is now called, Behind the Magic, where for a long time he wasn't trying to make it a LARP, and then a friend of his like sort of went through the book, is like, Randy, this just wants to be a LARP. I don't know why you're trying to fight what's going on here. It like, this is what it needs to be. And then Randy was much happier with all the mechanisms and everything in his life. So, I think it's what's really cool to take away from your story and also from Randy's story is that a game will kind of tell you what it wants to be over the course of time. Not that you should always save all of your ideas in like a trash folder and never delete it, because you never know when you're going to want to sift through that again. But I think sometimes we can get into a space where, in my case especially, when we try to brute force something and the game wants to be something entirely different. And I think that can put a mind at ease if you just like kind of let it do its thing.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that, for sure.
So what was writing Anamnesis like? Like, what was sort of your inspirations for it? What was maybe some of its, any touchstones that like helped you create the prompts and everything like that? And the structure? Yeah.
So I knew that I took a couple of inspirations for Anamnesis. The Wretched by Chris Bissett. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that name right. And then The Portal at Hill House by Travis Hill and Lindy Ferris Hill. Both of them definitely have different tones. I say that, but Anamnesis, both of them are a little bit darker than Anamnesis, but Anamnesis can be very, there is like a little bit of kind of what is the word for it? It can be a little bit surreal sometimes. So I think that surrealism, maybe, I think there's a little bit of inspiration that I got from Hill House with that one. But mechanically speaking, I knew that once I settled on tarot cards, I knew that I wanted each act to be a suit. So, and the Wretched does this, right? Where they have every single card in the Wretched has a prompt. And that was the style that I wanted to emulate for Anamnesis. And then Hill House kind of had more of the tone that I wanted to go for. Hill House is cosmic horror, not quite Anamnesis, but it was a little bit closer to that. And it kind of had it was very easy to kind of shape some of the prompts into a story of your making, and I wanted that to be very important for Anamnesis as well, because in Hill House you're kind of given different aspects of these rooms that you're walking into of this house. So one thing might be a word that describes the feeling of this room, like isolating, for example. And then another piece might be an object that you find in the room, like a circle of stones, things like that, right? So it gives you the different pieces, but then you can put them together in whatever way you want, and you can tell whatever story you want. I went into that game not like having a particular story thread in mind, and actually went out of it having this kind of really interesting story, in my opinion, that I want to actually continue when I play the game multiple times. I want this to be like a reoccurring character who has to like go through all these different houses. So basically, long story short, is that was really cool to me, and I wanted Anamnesis, I wanted the prompts to be specific enough to inspire, I wanted the prompts to be specific enough that you're able to branch off of them very easily, but also vague enough that they would fit in any sort of setting, and that you can kind of do what you want with them.
I'm here for it. It looks good to me. Do you want to play it a little?
I'm all game for that.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. We're gonna do a 2-player version where Sam will be my medium, and then I will character through this.
Yes.
Tell me my fortune. So I have a document set up here to like write down stuff, and I'll include it in the show notes. I don't see why not.
Sure.
So great. Let's do the dang thing. I gotta pick a shadow, right?
Yes. So that's usually something that is drawn, but if you wanted to pick one yourself, you're welcome to.
No, let's draw it. I'm here for the random. That's my life.
So the shadow card is basically, your character wakes up with amnesia, and the first thing that you do is you draw the shadow from the Major Arcana deck, and this represents who you were before your memory loss. So it's something that really, it's up to you how much you want to play into it. You might have some prompts that you answer that are very in line with your shadow, and you might have other prompts that you answer that seem a little counterintuitive to your shadow. But that's okay, in my opinion, because people are multifaceted, and just because you draw a certain archetype with the tarot deck doesn't mean that every action that your past self took fits cleanly into that archetype.
It's almost like when, in films or shows, it's almost like when the person has amnesia, they're spending this whole series like discovering a new version of themselves, and they're like, oh shoot, now which version is like true after towards the end.
That's actually very much that's kind of what I'm going for with this game, actually. Yeah, there's definitely a large emphasis on like your past versus your present, and like figuring out whether you're still the same person or not by the end of the game. So
yeah.
All right, so the shadow, I drew strength.
Awesome.
So I'm gonna just like open this up and read a tiny bit about strength just to get a sense of what it is. So
show us those voiceover skills.
We have power, energy, action, and courage for strength.
Cool.
Awesome. And then after that, we move on to the first act. So there's 5 acts in total. Each act kind of brings you through each act has a different focus. So the first one is kind of about when you first wake up. The second one is about walking through town and seeing kind of what rings a bell and how people respond to you and how you respond to what you see, and then it kind of goes from there.
Cool. We draw 3 cards, right?
Yes, we do. Let me draw those real quick. Okay.
All right.
If you don't
All
mind,
right.
I can read this little tiny thing at the beginning to set the scene.
Yes.
All right. So Act 1 is Pentacles, so it uses the Pentacles deck. You wake up in an unfamiliar place, seemingly within a town or city. You cannot remember who you are or why you are here. All you know for certain is that you are not in your home. Draw 3 cards from the deck of Pentacles. So...
I'm making drawing noises.
Perfect, excellent.
Hire me for your Foley work, please.
Yes, 100%. So the first one is the Knight of Pentacles,
Great start.
which is you notice a scar on your body. Where is this scar? Do you remember how you got it?
I think that I have a wide, large scar, purpling, maybe recently scabbing sort of
Okay.
thing, on like going from my left high trap, all the way to like towards my spine.
Ooh, wow, that's a big one.
Yeah, it's big. It's a big one.
Nice. Okay. Do you remember at all how you got it? You might not.
Myself is probably like I feel like it wasn't an accident. That's all I
Okay.
think I know.
Yeah, that's very good. I love that. Sweet. All right, you ready for the second one?
Yeah, let's go. Let's
Okay.
dive in.
We have the Seven of Pentacles.
7 of Pentacles. May I?
What was that?
May
you
I?
have it up?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Please.
I'm hoping, just so everyone knows, Sam has a more updated version of the one that I have. So if any prompts don't sound similar to what
Sure.
we'll figure it out.
Gotcha.
We'll do it live. 7 of Pentacles. You pull out your wallet
Oh,
and start
this is a different one.
thumbing through its. See there?
Yeah. I think I actually. Do you want me to send you this document really quick?
No, you read it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny because it's like one of the one of the major ones that changed.
I love it. I'm leaving it in there. So.
Go for it. Feel free. All right. So the Seven of Pentacles is now there is a word on the tip of your tongue. Which word is this?
Cool. I think it's a name.
Ooh, that's good.
It's a name
all
that
about that.
starts with like the first like letter my tongue wants to make when I think name is an R. So I think it starts with an R, but I don't know fully what it is.
Very cool. So you've got this name in your mouth that you can't quite say, and you've got this long scar down your back that seems fresh and seems intentional. Very good. Awesome. All right, are you ready for the next one?
Yes, absolutely.
Sweet.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Okay, it is the Two of Pentacles.
2 of Pentacles.
You look down at the clothes on your body. What are you wearing? How do you feel about the way you look?
I think that as I look down, and the reason why I probably noticed my scar in the first place is that I think it's hot, so I'm kind of sweating. I only have like slacks on. I don't see any of my other clothes in the room, and I think that there's like a line of just to kind of build out the room, I guess, of wherever the F I am. I think wherever I woke up from, there's like a small like little staining of like a bloodline in the carpet. I guess I woke up from the carpet, like just from like the scab maybe
Sure.
tearing as I'm rolling around in my sleep. So half naked, I suppose, with slacks.
Gotcha. Also, really quick pause. I just realized I was not doing this correctly.
I was like, when do we draw the major arcana?
Yeah, no, that's not a. Do
That's okay. We can go backwards. We can go backwards.
Do you want to redo, or do you want what are your thoughts?
No, we'll just add them in. We'll just do the thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So, half naked with slacks on the floor. I've built out a bunch of imaginative stuff for myself. Let's draw the major arcana for the Knight of Pentacles.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so the sorry about that.
No, you're fine. We're doing it. This is experiment time. Everyone at home listening, I hope you're having a good time, because I'm having a good time. So.
All right, the Knight of Pentacles. So you are supposed to draw the Pentacles card, and then you are supposed to draw a major arcana in order to give you more insight about how you feel about it or what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So with the Knight of Pentacles, we have the... There we go. We have the moon. Yes, so the moon... Hidden enemies, danger, darkness, terror, deception.
Can't make it up. I already did it. So that's the scar. You know what I mean?
That's very good. That's very good. Yes. Yeah. So maybe this is, I love this. So this scar was probably given to you then by some sort of enemy, or maybe there was a lot of fear behind it.
I think betrayal. The word betrayal is coming to me.
That's very good. I really love that. That's excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then for the...
Seven of Pentacles.
Yes. We have the Emperor. Stability, power, aid, protection, conviction, reason.
I get automatically the first thing my mind went to is either like a kingpin or a tyrant, right? So whatever this name is linked to, they're like a leader of something.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm curious what like your relationship with this person is like then, right? If it's the first name you think of.
Me too.
Like, are you just very loyal to them, or is it a personal relationship? Is it an enemy, right? Very good. I love
Sam, I don't know. I have amnesia.
All right, let's go with, maybe we'll figure it out then. The Two of Pentacles is the Sun, which is interesting. It is often marital happiness, fortunate marriage, contentment.
Okay. I think that to add to my clothing situation, I think there is maybe like a brand. I think there's like a scalding, like not a tattoo, but like a heat brand on my person. I think I easily notice it because it's on my forearm, I want to say.
Okay. What is it of?
Wow, great question, Sam. Thanks for having me here. Let's see. Looking around my room. It's the first thing that I'm chill with. Let's do what's over on my game shelf? I think that it is like some sort of depiction of I want to say an owl.
Ooh.
Like an owl in flight.
Okay. Interesting. I wonder if this has anything to do with this ruler.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, well that's Act 1. So you've got this scar that was created by some enemy recently. You've got this name of this ruler on the tip of your tongue that starts with an R, but you can't quite remember. And then you've got this brand of this owl on your forearm that you can't quite remember what it means.
Very asymmetrical.
Nice. That's very good.
Do you want to do an Act 2, and then we'll sort of like wrap up with that one, and then, hey, listeners, if this podcast episode can get to like, I don't know, 10,000 downloads or some ish, like, I mean, me and Sam will probably play on our own, but if you want to hear the continuing story of whatever I am, you got to earn it. So.
It's gonna be some bonus content there.
Yeah, exclusive. Yeah, let's go into, let's see, Act 2 Swords. Thank you, by the way, for facilitating this.
Yes, of course. I will hopefully play my own game properly in the second act. All right. Let's see. Okay, so Act 2 Swords. After getting your bearings, you walk around town. You know this town. You know it well, but you cannot remember it. Draw 3 cards from the deck of swords. So, we have 3 cards. And I'm ready to go when you are.
I'm here. Let's let it rip, Beyblades.
Awesome. All right, we're starting with the Queen of Swords.
Wow.
You pause in front of a building and realize you used to work here. What did you do here? Do you still work at this place? And I'm going to, this time, draw a Major Arcana.
Yeah.
So that we can kind of get some more insight into that. And that is the Hierophant. I might be mispronouncing that one. Hierophant? This one always gets
Hierophant?
Hierophant? Hierophant. All right. It is captivity, mercy, and goodness, inspiration.
I think there is a piece of it. I think it's a police station.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think it's a police station. I think that I'm maybe a detective. Well, I'm not. I don't know if specifically I would remember my role, but it is this large, either like court building or police barrack sort of.
Gotcha. All right. And how do you think you still work here, or do you not know?
I don't think anyone's recognized me yet, so it leads my current self to believe that I don't work here anymore. Like,
sure.
This must have been a long past thing.
Gotcha. All right, are you ready for card 2?
Yes.
We have, this is one of my favorite cards, the 9 of Swords, which just looks like, it's the one with the guy with all the swords behind him and he's weeping. It's just so evocative.
I love it.
Yeah. It's really something. So that one is, someone is having an argument in the street. Does this remind you of an argument you've had? And the Major Arcana card is Death.
Death. I was waiting for it.
So that's fun. Death means, if I can find it, there it is. End, mortality, destruction, and corruption.
Yeah, I think it definitely does. I think if anything, this is like the first piece of like tangible memory. And I think I remember arguing with like another officer of some sort. I don't know specifically of maybe who it was, almost like a chief of police. They were above my pay grade. And I think the people in the street are arguing about like letting something go or like ignoring something. Like, why is it such a big deal?
Yeah.
And I think I'm mad about that.
Gotcha. That's really good. Okay, are you ready for the last one?
Yes.
Okay. We've got 5 of Swords. Someone on the street recognizes you. How do they react when they see you? And I just pulled the Wheel of Fortune, which is destiny, fortune, success, luck, felicity.
I think the person who recognizes me is potentially the same person that put me in that room, and I think it's for like a safety reason. Like, it's almost like they're like, yo, you can't be out here right now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I think it's some sort of like, the word I want to use is like a protector.
Okay.
Whoever this is, they like me. I get the sense that I like them, and they probably saved me from like some final moments.
Wow. Gotcha. That's interesting. It's like, what were they protecting you from then?
Yeah.
Very cool. So you were some sort of detective or officer who at some point had this moment of argument that something should not be ignored, that was being ignored, and then you run into this person who recognizes you and seems to care about you and protected you from something, but you don't know what.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. That's Act
Ladies,
2.
ladies and gentlemen, that was Anamnesis first 2 acts. If you want to get those other 3 acts, I don't know, tweet at the both of us. We'll figure it out. 2-player version also of Anamnesis for the first time, perchance.
Not the first time, but
Okay.
it's not many times for sure.
Heard.
Yep.
I loved it. This is very cool, very evocative, very quickly, and it gives. I think what's interesting about the play here, for me, is how we were talking about. You're trying to decide who you want to be, your present self or your past self, right?
Yeah.
And I think what's really fascinating is not knowing who you are, having no description of who you are, or any way to like set up like a character, quote unquote. You're playing that. Like it's the feeling of like the riffing and then the creation and then the cementing of other ideas that is like, oh, this is a memory coming back to me as you create these things in the fiction. So I think you've created something very resonant in the sort of play cycle that you have here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, the themes and concept match a lot.
Thanks. Yeah, that is definitely like a big focus of it. And I think that it kind of, the first couple of acts are more about like learning about a little bit about yourself and your past, but then it does kind of more accumulate towards the end when you're really dwelling on that and figuring out who you are now. So it kind of shifts in that direction a little bit.
Small off mic spoiler for the both of us. The direction I'm currently going in is that I was like a detective police officer who went rogue because the police chief was like bribed or whatever.
Good.
So
yeah.
some
Love
sort of
that.
like vigilante energy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then
Might be maybe somebody from the police force is this enemy of yours.
Yeah. I think it's like a double. I think the police chief is also maybe like a kingpin, like just an underboss sort of situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. You can have that. Go ahead and keep that. Use it for a Blades game.
That would be an interesting Blades character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Like it. Thank you for that, Sam.
Of course. Thank you.
Any other last bits you want to talk about with Anamnesis that you think might be good for listeners to know in terms of like, is it sort of like sitting right now, or do you have like some future design iterations that you've been thinking about for it?
Sure. So Anamnesis is currently, the beta version is currently available on itch. It was itch funded. So because of the fundraising, I was able to hire Marks Shepard to do the editing, which is the new version that you heard was the edited version. And currently my friend Victor Winter is working on original art for the game, which is almost done, and I'm very excited about it. And Thomas Manuel is currently working on the layout. So once all of that is done, then we will have a final pretty version to be able to share with people. And everyone who did like help with the itch funding is also going to get a copy. It's just going straight onto the same itch page. So I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to see what it becomes. It's kind of like interesting to see other people's takes on it, you know, with Victor's art and Thomas's layout, just seeing how they are interpreting the kind of aesthetics of the game. And I've been really delighted by everything I've seen so far, so it's really cool. Yeah, I think the only other thing to say about it is that if you don't really know anything about tarot, don't be intimidated by the game. I try to make it clear, especially in the newer version, that you can really interpret the cards however you want to. So I read from like this little book that I have with me that like gives me the more official definitions of the cards, but I also we just did this with all of the cards being face up. So if you prefer to play with the cards reversed, you can do that too, whether they're upright or reversed, because the cards often have different meanings if they are. Or you can just like look at the pictures and just decide, like you can just take inspiration from the art on the cards, because a lot of the tarot decks are very evocative. So I really wanted to write Anamnesis in a way that was very available. Like, as long as you have a deck of tarot cards, even if you know nothing about tarot, you can still play this game.
Yeah, and I don't know, I haven't looked at tarot deck prices in a long time, but it's like, what, $10 or something like
it's
that?
It's not too much.
Less?
Yeah, I would say probably not much more than 10 to 15 maybe.
Where's our Anamnesis custom tarot deck?
That would be, man.
Custom tarot art.
That's what that is a thought that I have had that I think is very dangerous.
Packaged with the game, let's go.
I am thinking, I really want to do a print run of Anamnesis, and actually Thomas is helping to design it in a way that would still be pretty good for print. So, and I have to do some more research though. I'm thinking about maybe doing a Kickstarter in the future to help fund a print run. I'm not sure if I would be able to do one through Itch after kind of the initial Itch funding, but need to work that out. But I don't know. I mean, maybe that could be a Kickstarter stretch goal, but man, that's a lot of art. That is so much art. And I would just feel, I don't know. I mean, I know there's people out there who probably would love this, but I can't even imagine being an artist and being like, wow, I have to draw like pictures for every single one of these cards, right?
yeah, that's a big project.
Yeah, it's huge. But, so I'm probably going to go more simple than that. But gosh, that would be so delightful though.
Well, you could get a couple of artists and break it up by suits and arcana, what I mean?
That's true. That's a great idea.
That way they don't feel like they have to take on a 78 card load. They could take on like whatever that is divided by 4 math. Now I want to do it 38, 4, 30, no, 6, 9. So 19, like 20 cards or so.
Yeah. That's great actually, because like Anamnesis, you have the deck separated out anyway.
Exactly,
so,
yeah.
I'll think about that. I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah. Give them each a suit. Give them each a couple arcana, and that way you get an arcana deck that has mixed styles. Yeah,
that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Anyways, who am I? Just a business consultant. Amazing. It's trends time. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about things you're seeing, things you're experiencing, current events. So in this section, what I usually ask of my guests is that, are there any trends that you're seeing in your social circles, Discords, Twitters, Facebook groups, that keeps like repeating over and over again lately, that everyone's riffing off of? Are there trends that you're perhaps seeing that you want to spin sort of a cautionary tale against? Like there's this trend of like dunking on etc. or whatever. Not in like a dunk fashion per se here, but just in that like maybe something you disagree with. That's okay. I think this show is about disagreements as well. Or is there a trend within yourself that you want to spin out into the ether and just let a fan run with if they want to?
Sure. A lot of options there.
Yeah.
I think...
it's a taxing question. It's literally what every, don't ask this of your guest when you have a podcast. Man, figure it out.
Hey, it's a lot of it's plenty of options to choose from. It's good. I think, one trend that is kind of more close to me is this trend of itch funding that's going on. So... That's
Sam, didn't you just have a talk about that with Tony Facinda over on Plus One XP on Twitch?
I did. How did you know, Jeremy?
Going in the resources.
Itch funding is very cool. It's this new initiative where people are fundraising their games using Itch as that platform. And it's very interesting because Itch is not designed for fundraising. Itch is not inherently a fundraising platform, but people will make goals with, if this game raises a certain amount of money, then it will, have an editor or have extra art or have a print run. And it's really cool because it's a way that creators are trying to step away from Kickstarter a little bit. Kickstarter is so huge in this community, and it's really, I can only speak to certain parts of this because I have never run a Kickstarter. I am still very new when it comes to game design in general. So I don't have the experience of running a Kickstarter and seeing how it compares to itch funding, but I know that for me, the reason why I was able to itch fund Anamnesis was because it was very accessible to me. You know, again, as a new creator, it's kind of intimidating to run like your first Kickstarter, especially for like a game especially for like a fairly, well, that's not necessarily true. Sorry. It can be, for a new creator, Kickstarter can be kind of intimidating. And I found itch funding to be a lot easier. And also a way that I could get my game to people faster. You know, Anamnesis was already written, so I was able to have the beta version there for people to purchase and immediately see and start playing. While with Kickstarter, you have at least some delay until the campaign is over, and then often more of a delay as the kind of like the final product is being made. But itch is a little bit more flexible on how you do things. Some people do pre-orders with itch, some people do beta versions, and then the fundraising is to make it better, like Anamnesis. And, you know, some people have the full game out already, but they are fundraising for a print run or something else. So it has a lot more flexibility, and it's a lot more easy to manage. And also, more of the funds go towards the creator because Kickstarter takes a larger percentage of that. And also, Kickstarter is an all or nothing thing. So if you don't quite reach your goal with Kickstarter, then you don't see any of that money. But with itch, even if you don't quite hit your goal, you're still making money from the donations and the payments that you're getting for the game. So it allows you to at least do some of the things that you wanted to do with the fundraising. So that's very helpful. You know, for me, I was able to have a stretch goal because the original goal with Anamnesis was just to hire Thomas Manuel to do the layout. And then we blew past that goal really quickly. And so I was able to reach out to Marks about editing. And they did such an incredible job. Marks is an awesome editor. And so it's definitely a situation where if you have kind of multiple goals and you don't quite hit that last one, you can still do everything that you wanted. You can still do a good portion of what you wanted to do with the game because you are still getting some of the funds.
Yeah, if you don't know, itch funding has been a large topic on the show for some time, and I think it's really about like being aware of the scope of your project that gives you all these alternatives. I think that Kickstarter is useful for like if you have a big summed project that in order to make your like MVP or minimum viable, you need those funds fronted to even start, right?
Yeah.
The other sort of option I see that Kickstarter is good for is like you have a full game and you're basically kickstarting for like a supplement or an expansion or something like that. Hey, if we see that enough people want this thing, then, you know, all or nothing, if we get the funds, we can hire the people to do this, right? Itch funding is also great in terms of scope for games that like you want to take your own pace at, because Kickstarter doesn't give you a long time to like fund things. You have like 2 to 4 weeks depending on the size of your campaign or whatever.
Yeah.
To my knowledge. And then, but for itch funding, it's like you just kind of like casually rocking along. You can mark it when you want. Whereas like if you're kickstarting, once that thing goes live, you're out the gates every day on Twitter, just like, please buy my shit. I need it.
You've got just like this. It's definitely a sprint. Kickstarters are definitely a sprint. And, you know, itch funding can be, but it doesn't have to be. You can just kind of be like a nice little 5-mile run.
Yeah, you can choose your speed for sure. And like, I think the other thing to bring into context too is like for you, I'm sure that you probably set with those stretch goals in mind for your itch funding. Did you set that money aside? Like it didn't turn into spending money immediately. You were like, oh, this $300 is for Thomas, right? So you banked that somewhere. Did you? Yeah. Is that how you did it?
Yeah, I kind of already. I actually already had some funds set aside, just like in case we didn't quite reach it. But we ended up, you know, we ended up blowing past the goal, so it ended up being fine. But yeah, I mean, if I wanted to, I could even keep the money on itch for a bit, just not even do the payout yet until it's needed. So it definitely, it wasn't difficult to kind of set that aside.
Yeah, and I think that's important to note about the itch funding process is I think that in some of my conversations with other people, I think one thing that may not potentially be clear to everyone is that, like, even if you're itch funding in a slower pace on itch, you do need to, like, pocket that money somewhere. You can't just, like, because if you spend that $300 you want for an editor on your groceries for the next week, which if you need to spend it on your groceries, please spend it on your groceries. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, like, a new $300 is not going to magically appear if you spend that money. So I think with the same thing with Kickstarter, it's about managing your expectations for your stretch goals and things like that, and to keep that in mind as you use these sort of more flexible or versatile options that you can sort of customize for your scope or experience in terms of what you want to do with your game creation business. So I think itch funding is super important. Are there any people you want to shout out that you think, aside from yourself, do itch funding super well? I mean, one that comes to my mind is Keegan EXE does a fantastic job.
Yep. Yeah. This person who came to my mind as well. Yeah, Keegan's been a great force in the itch funding kind of push recently anyway, because they have been compiling and keeping this list of all of the current games that are being itch funded. So anyone who's interested in itch funding, who wants to support that, can just check out Keegan's list and see what is currently there, which has little descriptions of each game as well, and just follow those links and see what's up. So that's been awesome. And so they've been just doing a great job spreading the word about different games that are being funded that way, and I think have funded 2 games that way through itch funding now.
A Necromancer and In Extremis.
Yes. Both of them just quality killer games. But I am always a fan of Necromancers anyway, so I'm a little biased. But yeah, Keegan's done a great job. Had some very successful itch fundraisers. I don't know what the word for that is, but it's there. And I also know that so one of the things about itch funding and everybody doing things a little bit differently. With Keegan's itch funding, they did a pre-order for their newest game, and that worked out really well for them. And again, I had a beta version up, download and play immediately. But also, Thomas Manuel, who's doing the layout for Anamnesis, has his own game that is being itch funded called Hyper City, which is awesome. This is such a cool game. It's a solo but together game where you play it solo, but then there's like this message board where essentially you get a group of people and then you each play this game individually, but you use this message board to communicate while you play. And it's like very important to the game. Everybody also has amnesia in that game, so like you're kind of on this message board figuring out who you are, where you are, all that stuff. So that's really interesting. But he had that game up for free on itch, but every $5 he adds this certain like supplement to the game. So you can donate $5 for him to write this extra supplement, and that's really cool, and I think has been working out pretty well. So there's definitely a lot of different ways that you can do it, but those are the first 2 that came to mind. Definitely.
Awesome. Yeah, I think those are both good ads. There'll be links to both of those projects as well as Sam's projects for everyone to reference if you're thinking about itch funding, which you should. And
it's nice.
I've seen other models. I guess if we're on the topic of like versatile ways of accruing dollars, another one that I've seen is Tracy Barnett does for their Patreon. Basically, all their tiers offer the same rewards. They're differently priced. I think it's like 1, 3, 6, 10, 20, and 50. But you get the same thing regardless. But what that is you get special bonus content to Tracy's podcast, which I believe, as of the recording of this, is not currently active. I may be incorrect. Anyways, you get access to bonus content for the podcast. You get access to all of Tracy's games and game supplements and game-related paraphernalia. And basically what Tracy does is when they get a certain amount of patrons or dollar amounts. I don't remember which goal. I think it's patrons that their goal is set to. But when they hit a certain amount of patrons, they put a goal of like, hey, for this next goal month, if we hit this, I will finish a game, like an Ashcan project. Like I'll start working on an Ashcan project or something like that. Or I'll get an editor. Or so like it's kind of taking that itch funding concept, but putting into specific like monthly goals.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating. It's a really interesting way to use Patreon. Now, you know, Patreon has its, I think it's 8% cut of fundings.
That's not terrible.
Itch does like 10 or something like that.
Yeah, Itch does 10 as its default, but you can adjust it to actually do even less than 10 if you wanted to. But yeah, that seems to be 8 isn't too bad.
Yeah, I think it's 8 if you don't do the Patreon like membership thing. And then I think Patreon also has a way of handling merch distribution for you as well, but that costs an extra percentage of cut from all of your stuff. So anyways, it's a really interesting model. I'm going to add that to the resources link here. I've certainly stolen the model for my own Patreon, which I think is going to go live Tuesday.
Nice. Okay.
Same thing, you know, you can pay whatever you want, but it gets you access to all of the episodes as soon as I interview with people. So as soon as we're done here today, I'll be editing your episode and then putting it up. Yeah, anyways, the point of that is not to self-promote myself, but is to mention that, like, thank you. There are quite a few options aside from Kickstarter, and then you know you can even get into stuff like Indiegogo and all of that. You know, a lot of us are trying to take some of the monopoly power out of these entities.
Yes.
And you know, we're game designers. We have to be creative. So like to solve problems. We're game role players. We have to be creative to solve problems. So out of the box thinking, I think, is going to be very powerful in the next. Even probably couple months. Like I think the landscape will change pretty dramatically by December. That's my opinion.
The like short time that I have been, you know, active in the indie scene, everything changes so fast.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like, you know, if I'm not, I won't look at Twitter for like a bit, right? And then I'll go back on and be like, everything's different. You know? So it's kind of funny. But yeah, it's definitely a big conversation that's happening right now and a really important one. And it's really cool to see everybody be so creative about how they're doing their fundraising. That's a really cool thing about Tracy's Patreon. I've never seen somebody do different tiers that all had the same content, which is such a cool idea. You know, it allows people to, if you're struggling financially, to choose a lower tier, and if you are able to give more, to choose a higher tier, and that's awesome. Yeah,
I think it's really cool, and it's the same thing. It's like, what value does my thing have to you, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, someone might be financially struggling or financial situation may not allow for them to donate $50 a month, but $1 a month, sure, and that's a buck's a buck. You know what I mean? Like I'll take it if I can get 75 people to give me $1, that'd be cool.
Right?
You know what I mean? But even then, like even up to $3, it's $2 more than $1. It's just like it's such a scalable model to the person who's valuing or consuming your product. Which, you know, I know we get into these fuzzy conversations about like, oh, if you're doing the thing, you're doing it for fun. To do it for money is like, that's not a good way to look at it. I'm like, listen, unfortunately, the capitalist game is real. And while we all hate it, myself included, you got to play the game. The game's not changing anytime soon. So let's just adjust the rules a little bit.
Yes, fully there. I think it's a balance to strike, you know? I mean, like, it's been interesting for me to navigate recently because I've really only just realized that I can make a little bit of money from this, right? And so like that does change your perspective a little bit moving forward, right? Like I'm still going to make the games that I want to make, but there's now extra levels of a deeper thinking about how to market yourself and, you know, whether to like do freelance projects and things like this. So it's definitely a big world of it, and like it's cool to see different people going about it in different ways. Yeah, I love it. Oh, good, great, happy, super strong. Off mic, there's a book I want to recommend called. I'll send you a link in Discord. I think it's called How to Win Without the Pitch by.
I can't remember what the author's name is. But it's sort of like taking the concept of how to take back the profession of being a creative. It talks about creative firms, but it's like, we're in a state of creativity where everyone this mostly kind of talks about like artwork, like graphic design and stuff like that, and how it's a race to the bottom because no one values art, and the book tries to instruct you or build you up in that like you have more control than you think, and all of your pricing should be relative to your living situation. So like you can't do your work for $25 if you can't afford to do 2 jobs on $25 a month, right? Was it?
Yeah.
When we're talking about those tarot cards, right? It's like that those 20 cards are going to take maybe like 2-3 weeks. So like, what's your rate for that? For having all of your artistic time be sucked up for 2 to 3 weeks?
Sure.
That's a whole month's worth of bills. So
that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'll have to check that out.
Absolutely. So last bit here, Sam.
Jeremy.
Sam. No one's ever called back on me, so I wasn't ready. Welcome to Tips. As a new designer, and a lot of the common tips for this is like, don't be afraid to reach out to people. I'd like to dig a little bit deeper than that, if we can here. If that's the default answer, let's go with it. Like I said, podcast magic lets me edit out silences. But yeah, what as a new designer has been like really helpful to you, and what do you think might be helpful to any like new designers out there?
Sure. I think that there's a few things. I mean, first of all, don't be afraid to build off of the work that inspires you and to build off of other people's work. Most people in the game design community, they like it when people hack their games and when they, make supplemental material for their games and things like that. And, if you're not sure, you can always reach out to a creator of a game and just ask if that's okay. Most of the time, they'll be delighted by it. So there's a lot of game designers talk about the fact that there are no original ideas. And in fact, like, not just game designers, it's just kind of a fiction sort of thing in general. I've heard about it in like fiction writing. So it really is okay to take something that inspires you and to build from it, and to, or to take a piece of media like, any media to take literally anything, to take like a show that you like, a movie, a book, and to make a game that's inspired by that. There are so many games out there that are like this, just a ton, every game, so many games. So there's like, there's a lot of places where you can pull inspiration from, and you shouldn't be afraid of pulling inspiration, because if you're trying to create something extremely new, extremely unique, extremely original from scratch as your first project, going into it with that mindset is going to be very intimidating. And your game, it can be still new and unique and original while also taking inspiration from something else. So that's definitely a big one, because staring at a blank piece of paper is the worst feeling that I hate so very much. So it's good to, it's good to be okay with that. Also, for me, I think that kind of that staring at a blank piece of paper sort of thing, figure out which, and this is something you kind of figure out over time, I guess, but like, figure out what the best way for you to get your ideas down is, because I know for me personally, opening up a blank Word document sucks. I hate it. No, thank you. So I have, usually when I do initial brainstorming for a game, I use pen and paper. I open up a notebook and I just do a very, very much a train of thought, not even trying to be that cohesive, just writing down everything that I'm thinking of. And then I'll find that those ideas will start to accumulate, and that I'll be more drawn towards certain ideas than others. And usually once I kind of have a more general direction of where I want to go, that's when I open up the Word doc and I start like actually kind of doing more planning there. So I think that getting yourself into whichever space will put words down is the best thing, right? Does not matter if the words are good. It just matters that you are getting them down somewhere. And whether that is on a Word doc or on paper or on a whiteboard or anything else, sometimes listening to music helps. Just getting started is obvious. That's kind of the classic tip, just do it, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard to just do it. So
yeah.
putting yourself in the environment and with the tools that you can do it in is always good. So that's definitely a tip of mine as well. I think other than that, as far as like, I think other than that, don't be afraid to like hop into Discord servers and stuff. I know that Discord servers have been extremely inspirational for me, and you don't even have to be that active in them. Like, if you are active, great, but also people understand that, like, there can be a lot of people in Discord servers, and it can be kind of intimidating, and, like, that's okay. And sometimes you just don't have time to keep up with everything that's going on. I know that, like, after I have so many Discord servers, and it is impossible to keep up with all of them. So I just I've just stopped trying. Like there are a couple in particular that I try to keep up with more, but really like it's okay to not. It's okay to kind of linger on the edges if that is what you're comfortable with. But even just seeing like the type of discussion that is happening, that can be inspiring, and people in this community I have found are just so supportive. I've been really blown away by how supportive the community is and how welcoming they are to new people. And so just know that, like, if you do hop in one of these servers, like Jeremy Gage's server, or like the Brain Trust or Gila RPG, Spencer Campbell's server, when you hop in there, you'll get a very warm welcome. So, and people totally understand if you're not super active in there. That's okay. So that's something to kind of check out, a way to talk to designers, a way to see what people are talking about and get some inspiration. And it can be inspiring just seeing people doing the work, and being able to do it alongside them.
Yeah, on all three of those, as far as the inspiration front, I mean, and you brought up Spencer. Spencer is, the one thing I like about the indie scene is that when you make a supplement for someone's work, usually that person is like, hell yeah, because it's sort of like they want to boost you up, but also on the real like business level, it also like builds up their game's portfolio, right? Like the more things that are created for it, the more like resonant it becomes, the more critical mass it builds. It's like D&D has all these expansions. Blades in the Dark has a bunch of Forged in the Dark games that always call back to it. PBTA, right? So like for Spencer, with the recent, as of the recording of this, Nova Kickstarter that's been going live, and Nova's been talked about for months now at this rate. There are a ton of people making supplements for this thing, and it has really like caught its own fire. And
for sure.
Like praise to that entire community. As far as the write it down tip, I'm more on the tech savvy side of things, but same thing is like create a space where you're able to jot down the idea as quickly as possible. My thing is don't trust your brain. Your brain's not going to remember it. I guarantee it. You're going to be in the shower. You're going to think about it like, okay, cool, I'll write that down after I get out of the shower. You get out of the shower, you do your after shower care, you start dinner. You're like, okay, now I have to make dinner for 30 minutes. You have no idea what the original form of that idea was. So for 100%. Me, I use a markdown program called Bear. It costs, I think it's like $14 for the year, something like that. But it has like a tagging system. So if I write an idea, I have like these set of table of content tags that I index, and I'm like, okay, this is a systems idea. So I'll write down the systems idea, and then I'll tag it under system, and then I can like just get rid of it. And then I can go back to my index and be like, what are my system ideas? Like, I'm kind of struggling with the system idea. My other piece of advice for myself on that, as well, as like, write down where the idea came from, because it helps you immediately re-enter context of why you thought about that. You're watching the Avengers, right? And like, oh, that would be a really cool like event to put in my D&D game, because D&D truly is just the Avengers at the end of the day. But that's a great way of getting yourself back into the context of like why you had this idea in the first place, which I think is really powerful. And then go ahead.
Yeah, I've never thought about that before. Like that is such a cool idea. I'm gonna have to start doing that. That's really neat.
Yeah, it's because sometimes you like write down the idea, you use like some short, and I will also say like when, at least for me, I used to shorthand my ideas all the time, like, 7D7 system, and then like I'll put that away somewhere, and it's like I have no idea what the fuck this means. past Jeremy did not prepare future Jeremy for this. So it's like, write out kind of like a coherent thought as well.
Yes.
So you can basically to get yourself back into it. But to double down also on the community thing, it's like, there are, and not just Discords, not just Twitters. I mean, there are Twitter lists that you can be a part of. I know that Twitter is trying to also get their own like groups feature on coming at the end of the year, some ish like that. Facebook groups, really anywhere where there's like a conjunction of people that share your ideas or share in your industry, you should definitely be a part of. And I think I also want to tack on too is that there can be something to be said about surrounding yourself with people that think like you, but at some point that plateaus. And so what's nice about larger communities or even different communities, if they'll have you, is that like having different perspectives can challenge the way you think and help you grow so much faster because it sort of forces you to recontextualize what you think you know as far as an industry and a scholarly pursuit in the sense of game design, right? So it really helps you build up other inspirations that you yourself may have never sought out.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great tip.
Yeah. I mean, it was your tip. I was just riffing on it. It doesn't belong to me. But yeah, any other additionals there, Sam, before we get to the top of the show?
I think the only thing is because you were talking about like organizing your ideas, and I just want to say I'm a strong proponent for creating a personal Discord server.
Yeah. I love it.
It's great. It works so well. You just make a Discord server. It's all to yourself. You don't invite anyone to it, and then you make whatever channels you want to make, and you throw whatever ideas in there that you want to throw. So it's fairly easily searchable. Like I have a Discord server, and it's got like pictures that I've seen that I can use for setting inspiration. That's one channel. Another channel is ideas that I have for TTRPGs to write. And then another channel is links to RPGs I want to buy, which is a very dangerous channel. So it's just like a way to keep track of things, honestly. And I'm definitely strong on that one. I will recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, I know Ty loves it too. Ty,
Yes.
shout out to longtime fan Ty. Thank you. In fact, Ty, I think, was one of the people that put me on your radar in the first place. So I'm
really?
happy that you've been here. Yeah.
Ty's awesome. That's very nice of him.
Yeah. Great. Well, Sam, that brings us to the finale.
Hey.
We've reached the outro of the show. Real quick, replug yourself, let people know where they can find you if they scrubbed all the way through and made it here with us today. All these links and resources that we've talked about in the show will be down in the show notes for your access listeners.
Sweet. All right. Well, I am Samantha Leigh. I can be found at samleigh.itch.io or on Twitter at Goblin Mixtape because I make so many Spotify playlists. So many. I think I'm in the 300s now. Anyway.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's real bad. So... And, you can find my games on itch. Anamnesis, obviously the one that you've heard today. Hopefully to be getting a new, fresh look very soon here. And, yeah, I think that's everything. I am available for freelance work as well, if anyone is interested in that.
Yeah, do you have an email that people should...
Yes, I do. Samantha.Leigh14. I said that weird. 14.
14.
14. Yes, Samantha.Leigh14 at gmail.com.
Perfect. And also, just trying to help out as much money as possible. What about voiceover work? You have I think you have an AXE? Is that what it's called?
Yes, AXE. Actually, maybe not. Are you talking about ACX? Maybe?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
To be honest, it's been a while since I've used it.
All right,
so
great.
I was like,
Yeah,
am
yeah.
I remembering? Yeah. If you're interested in voiceover work, if you're looking for a voiceover artist, you can reach out to me through my email or through Twitter. I've done a couple of audiobooks before and mostly like instructional videos, but I'm really interested in doing audiobooks for RPGs. It's admittedly not something I've done a lot of yet, but I've been kind of thinking about making some for my own games, which could be fun. So yeah, but I'm also available for that work as well.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, Sam. Thank you, everyone, for sitting down with us today. It has been an absolute pleasure. I learned a lot. I hope you did too. And we will catch you next time. Say bye to the people, Sam.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you for taking the time to sit down and hang out with Sam and I. We really appreciate it. You can find links and resources down below in the show notes, such as getting in touch with Sam or other episodes with similar topics. If you want to be a part of the conversation, please come and join the community Discord server. Also, make sure to subscribe to the Draw Your Dice Patreon, where you can get access to early releases of episodes from as soon as we interview. Thanks again for stopping by, and as always, I will catch you next time.